Paddy Power are gearing up for the Six Nations with this cracking offer. Place a What Odds Paddy bet and get your money back as a free bet if it loses. Max free bet £10. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to this special Six Nations Postcast. If rugby's your game, then don't go anywhere for the next half an hour or so, because we're going to be discussing the tournament in great depth. And to join me in the studio, I've got Graham Woods and Stuart Riley, and from our sponsors Paddy Power, Mr. Joe Lee. Now we're going to crack straight into it, gents. I'm going to ask you two questions. I want a two-word answer. Who wins the Six Nations and will there be a Grand Slam? Stuart, 2 words.
England and yes.
Graham?
I'm going to say England and no.
And Joe?
I am going to say Ireland with my green tinted glasses on. I'm going to go with no.
Okay. Now, one of the most interesting aspects of the Six Nations, I think, this season, possibly more than any other, is injuries. In the run-up to the tournament, it's not just one team that suffered, it's been all of them. And I don't think we've had a situation like this before. I think Wales were without 10 players, England about the same amount, and Ireland and Scotland as well have been affected. Graham, what's your take on that?
It's certainly affected everyone quite badly, and maybe the Lions tour has got something to do with it. There's a lot of not just injured players, but very jaded players. Now, England, most of their injuries, I would say, are kind of fringe players, but the big one is Billy Vunipola. He's a massive out, and it's not helped by the fact that number 2, kind of number 8, Nathan Hughes is injured as well. So his logical backup is missing. They're going to miss Vunipola's ball-carrying presence. He's a real physical beast around the pitch. And they've also got a few problems in the front row. Joe Marler will be back later in the tournament. He's banned at the moment. He's not injured. But England have the depth. That's the great thing. I mean, even some of these youngsters coming in the front row, uncapped, we haven't seen much of them even for their clubs. But I think they're ready. Eddie Jones thinks they're ready. That's important. And England have got Italy first up. I think they can ease themselves in a bit. Italy won't be easy, but they can go there, get a comfortable win and build on that. And hopefully some players will come back.
Stuart, that's another thing I was going to say. It's interesting, this tournament. If you look at the way the fixtures shape up, it's crucial first weekend for every team. If Ireland get through France, then they've got 3 home games to come. That might favour them. If Wales lose at home to Scotland, they've got 2 very, very tough away games, England and Ireland coming up next. It's a pivotal first weekend, and it really could advance the claims of some teams and make it a very long winter for others.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Scotland-Wales game is probably one of the most crucial games of the entire tournament, first up for both teams. I think if Wales lose it at home, it becomes a very long tournament for them. I actually was looking at them for the to finish 5th market. Scotland, there's an awful lot that is encouraging there for that team. They're the least affected by the Six Nations hangover, because so few of them went. The big problem or question mark with them is their pack. They have been absolutely decimated. They've got, I think, six props and several hookers out injured. Now, the pack that they have put together for this Wales game really isn't too dissimilar to the pack that pushed New Zealand really close. So don't underestimate it. The 2 changes are in the front row to both props, but actually you could argue that they're upgrades. They're definitely players with test match experience anyway. So that Scotland team, they haven't travelled as well in recent years as they have in the past, as other teams. So an away game against Wales, that's a huge game in this tournament, more so than I think any of the other matches in the first week. I think England and Ireland have a nice soft opening, especially as Ireland follow it up with a trip to Italy as well. So they can sort of ease themselves into the tournament. I think that Scotland-Wales game is going to be crucial.
And Joe, from an Irish angle, how have you been coping with injuries over there? And, will it affect you as much as the other teams?
Yeah, look, on the injury front, I don't think the Irish are as dramatically as affected by some of the other sides, particularly as already kind of alluded to the Welsh side, which are beyond decimated. I think on the injury front, look, a lot of international sides and a lot of club sides at this point, the way players are built and the way the game is played, they just have to get accustomed to covering for injuries and that. Yeah, look, definitely Vunipola a massive out for England, and that's why I would look and kind of start falling on the Irish side as well from an outright standpoint. Like if you look at Anglo-Irish Champions Cup fixtures, season today. It's 7-1 in favour of the Irish. Now, while that doesn't necessarily transfer to the Six Nations exactly, it's definitely something that has to be looked at and appreciated to a certain degree.
And Joe, give us a betting rundown. Where do we stand at the moment on the outright markets? Who's market leader?
Yeah, so currently, look, we're even money England. We're looking to take the English on, as I kind of said already. 6-4 Ireland, 11-1 Scotland. Definitely the best bet side in the Six Nations outright with ourselves so far. So there's certainly some hype, and punters are believing that Scotland have something up their sleeve. 16-1 Wales. Obviously, they've drifted dramatically on the back of all that injury news. 16-1 France. They've got some kind of bug in the camp at the minute. They've got a new coach. The French are like a box of chocolates. You don't ever know what you're going to get with them. And then Italy, the whipping boys, who have no chance.
Okay, we're just going to go to a break and we'll be back for more very shortly.
Paddy Power are gearing up for the Six Nations with this cracking offer. Place a What Odds Paddy bet and get your money back as a free bet if it loses. Max free bet £10. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org.
Now, we're just going to have a little discussion about the 6 teams involved in the tournament, purely because they come up first on my list. We're going to start with Italy. Presumably, Graham, they are going to win the wooden spoon, and that's probably all they'll win. Will they target one particular game and think, yes, this gives us a realistic chance of a win, or are they going to struggle against all sides this year?
I don't think they'll target one game as a potential win. Conor O'Shea has really said that he's told his players, just go out and play well. That's what he wants them to do. He wants them to perform well. And if they do that, eventually, years down the line, a win will come. They will target England first up, I'm sure, because they've got the most time to prepare for it. Conor O'Shea always puts a lot of store in his preparation and his build-up. And Italy start well in most tournaments. They give their best, I think, especially at home in front of their fans for that first game. I don't think they'll be as poor as they were last year. The big thing for them last year was second half of matches, they just fell away. And it can only have been down to fitness, and they've worked very hard on that. You look at the Italian teams and the Pro 14, they've picked up a bit. And O'Shea has gone for some younger talent in the squad. So I think they'll be more competitive. If match handicaps are priced up based on last year's performances, we could get a bit of value siding with them. I don't think they'll get as badly put to the sword as they were last year.
And Stuart, on the off chance we have any Italian fans listening to this podcast, can you give them any hope at all?
I can't. I actually think it's going to be a bloodbath for them, because the way the Six Nations is structured, due to how competitive it is at the top end, like England and Ireland look to have separated themselves from the rest. But I don't think anyone would argue that any of Wales, Scotland or France are capable of beating them on their day. So that brings an awful lot of teams into this as a competition, and the Six Nations has come down to points difference, or points difference on the final round of matches has been a massive factor. We've seen some absolute burn-ups in the final round of matches in previous years, and so I think that teams will not take lightly to Italy. I think teams will look at Italy as their one chance to massively boost their points total. They'll play every other game as an out-and-out test match, and they will just try and rack up on Italy. So no, I think it's going to be a stern test for them.
Staying with you, let's go to Scotland. I know you have Scottish genes in you, so you might be looking through rose-tinted spectacles. They had a fantastic autumn, put it to New Zealand. They beat Australia. Does that mean there's a possibility they overachieved then and might underachieve now, or do you see it as like a solid platform where they should go on and express themselves in this tournament?
I think this is a Scotland team going from strength to strength. I think Gregor Townend is doing fantastic work with the bunch. I think Vern Cotter did a great job. I think the autumn internationals, the most encouraging thing about the autumn internationals was the manner in which they sort of dealt with the injury setbacks that they had. Scotland as a team have got themselves into a point where they have 15 players they can put out on the pitch that are really very good players. They had a number of players that were unlucky not to go on the Lions tour, or could feel they were unlucky not to go on the Lions tour. If you go down the years, the difference with Scotland has been the backups just are not to test match standard in the way that Wales and Ireland are, and England definitely.
They've only got two teams to pick from.
Exactly. England goes so deep, in their selection that they can put out in a test match environment. Scotland are starting to build that, which is really encouraging, and I think that Yeah, I genuinely think that there is a wave of optimism behind this team. If you look at the stats for the last 2 years in international rugby, New Zealand are clear. England and Ireland are next. Scotland are the only other team who return a positive points and tries tally. Like, they have separated themselves from the rest, including Australia, South Africa, Argentina, not just the other Six Nations countries. Those 4 countries have separated themselves. Scotland are straggling behind the other 3, but they have separated from the rest. So statistically, over the last 2 years, they've been a very strong performing team. Their win rate is very good. And I actually think that the price for them for third in this Six Nations market, if you look at the individual prices in those markets, both France and Wales in their individual finishing position markets, 5th is favourite as a country. Scotland, it's 4th, but you've got England and Ireland clear. You've got Italy well behind. Someone's got to finish 3rd, and I think it's going to be Scotland.
Joe, over to you. I didn't go to you for the Italians because I presume you're of a similar opinion to Graham and Stuart. Is there any way we can profit from them? And also, how do you see Scotland going yourself?
Yeah, the Italians, I wouldn't necessarily agree that they'd be... Well, they do look like the whipping boys, but like looking at the league and how much Conor O'Shea's involved in club sides now, apparently he's not only taking charge of the international side, but he's also kind of assisting with coaching and certainly adding a lot to the club sides. And they've been performing well domestically. So, yeah, look, I think looking at handicaps and trying to side with the Italians mightn't be the worst play in the world. They're 21-point underdogs in first up against England. Out fresh, a lot of time to prepare. And we obviously all remember that last game where Italy played England and the referee got analysed afterwards for the tactics that they used.
And Scotland, how do you see Scotland going? Are they a threat to your own team, Ireland, or do you think they'll overachieve, or do you see them as big players?
Yeah, look, I think I'm intrigued to actually see how Scotland do from a Six Nations standpoint this year. Definitely, as I said earlier, the punters are putting their faith in Scotland. They're probably not as dramatically affected on the injury front as other sides. Got a bit of a crisis on the prop front, and as a result of that, maybe the scrum might struggle, and that'll be found out against kind of the bigger, stronger sides. Yeah, we're currently 9-5. They finish 3rd. So that might be the bet there, all right, if you can see them kind of beating the others. Obviously, a massive game for them first up against Italy as well. Against Wales. They're currently 2-point underdogs. Probably that's just giving Wales the respect of the fact that they're at home.
Graham, turning to Wales, they're one of the most interesting teams in the tournament for me. Due to injuries, Gatland has had to change his approach a little bit, bring new players in. That might not be a bad thing. Patchell at 10 is interesting, I think. He's a very, very good player. Hadley Parkes did very well against South Africa. He's just been drafted in. They've got a new look back row as well. Moriarty at 8. If he's fit and at his best, he's a brilliant player, but he's lacked game time. It's an interesting selection he's gone with, Gatland, for their first match.
Yeah, he's had his hand forced, and there's no doubt it's not the team he would have wanted to go with. But like you say, it's no bad thing. I remember previewing a Cardiff match when Reece Patchell was making his debut as a teenager, and I said, they got no chance. They got this kid at fly half, and I watched the game, and he actually played really well. He's done very well for Scarlets. So Scarlets doing so well domestically and in Europe, they form the bulk of the back line, plus Josh Adams, who's currently the Premiership's top try scorer for Worcester. So there's talent there. Like Stuart said, that game against Scotland, the first match, will just tell us so much and will be everything. I mean, there's a case for going back to the old Gatland way and just shoving it up the jumper and taking it to Scotland up front. Now, Gatland was asked at the Six Nations launch, are you going to do that? And he said, sure, why not? Which is a pretty good sign that he won't do that, because, you can never... You have to basically believe the opposite of anything Warren Gatland says. But there's a chance for them to do that. And they have got a strong front five. They're missing a lot of players in the back line and the back row. Their front five is strong, led by Alan Wynne-Jones. They've got a good front row. And if they can get a platform, and if they can deny Scotland a platform, they have got the players, with the confidence and the talent to get them on the score sheet. So it will be a fascinating game. It will tell us so much about Wales.
And an interesting autumn for Wales. Gatland did try and change the tactics a little bit, make them more open and expansive. But as Graham alluded to, if Scotland have got problems up front, maybe the tactic for them this time is to go with their forward power. They've got Halfpenny at fullback to kick the goals.
Yeah.
That might be the way they go. They might keep it tight and just try and beat Scotland up front, deny them ball.
I think that is Scotland's biggest weakness, looking at the current selection, is their front five. Wales's biggest strength, looking at their current selection, is their front five. So it makes sense for Wales to make it a front five contest. Now, with Halfpenny, you're a threat from anywhere inside the other team's half. Scotland defensively are a very strong team. Statistically, defensively, they're very good. One of the things that's quite interesting in the Town End era, there's a lot more talk of being a lot more attacking team. Actually, statistically, attacking-wise, they're not as good as they somewhat seem. The main strength of that Scottish team is defence is impeccable. So they will have. It actually matches up quite well in a sense of if Wales want to make it a front five battle, Scotland's defence is incredibly strong. Do Wales then have what it takes outside to cut through them, and do Scotland have enough to put points on the board as well? Because I mean, obviously, Laidlaw's been the main kicker. He's not playing. He's just back from injury. You're then looking at Finn Russell and Hogg for the longer kicks would give you a sort of a similar to Halfpenny in that he can slot them from just about anywhere, although the consistency with those two I wouldn't put in the Halfpenny bracket. So Wales have the strength in the front five and off the kicking tee, and it will be interesting to see how Scotland counter that.
And Joe, what do you think of the Welsh? I mean, we've been alluding to the fact that the first game is crucial for them, and I really think it is, because win that and they've got their tails up, ahead of a date at Twickenham. If they lose, pick up a few more injuries maybe, then they've got England and Ireland away to kind of, well, not look forward to, but that's the way the fixtures fall for them. And it could be very, very tough if they don't get get going early against Scotland.
Yeah, so look, obviously the Six Nations is all about momentum, and the games come so thick and fast. It's all about how you kick things off. Wales, roughly about 7-4, 15-8. The first scoring play of the game in the Scotland game to be a penalty. So just kind of building on what the guys said there, if you've got a battle in the scrum, Welsh dominance versus kind of creaking from a Scottish side mightn't be the worst bet in the world. Look, if they get over Scotland, they're still going to have some pretty big games to come. I personally see them struggling this year. Like, the injuries are very, very difficult to overcome for me. And no matter what Gatland says, I think Warren Ball is basically the way they're going to go. So, look, I see the Scottish game being very tight. Another one I kind of fancy there is maybe a draw at half-time in around the kind of 10 or 12-1 mark. Might be interesting if it does come down to a kind of a kicking contest.
Okay. Graham, going to Ireland now. They've got a trip to Paris first up. The trip to Paris for any side now wouldn't maybe have the fear factor they once did. If they get through that, they've got a lovely run of games, 3 games at home, including Italy in their next match as well. So by the end of game 2, they could have built up some massive momentum if they can just grab that win in Paris. How do you see Ireland going?
There is a lot to like about Ireland. And I would be very happy if I'd backed them sort of this at the end of last Six Nations when they're about the 3-1 mark. They've come into 6-4 now. And a lot's changed with the other teams. One thing that hasn't changed is that they've still got to go to Paris and they've got to go to Twickenham, and those are tough fixtures. They've never won both of those in the same year. And Ireland, all right, yes, we know the provinces are doing well in Europe, but it is a big step up to Test rugby. And really, it's the price more than anything putting me off Ireland, but also I think this France team is being dismissed a little bit too lightly. Yes, a new coach has come in, Jacques Brunel, who had a fairly turgid time at Italy in the Six Nations, went to Bordeaux after that, and he's just been drafted in the last month. But the word I'm hearing from the French camp is that he's letting the players sort of lead the way a lot. They're sort of overseeing team meetings and training sessions. France have always had the talent. What they've never really had is the direction. Now, if that squad's pulling together now, that makes them very dangerous.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about France. They've got a new fly half, 19 years old.
Yeah.
New kid on the block. Could they very well cause what you'd say would be a minor upset and win against Ireland on Saturday?
Well, that France-Ireland game, I think, is one of those games where I could say no result would surprise me. If France won easily or won a tight one, if Ireland won easily, nothing would surprise me in that game because there's so many unknown factors. This kid, Mathieu Jalibert, I mean, he's from Bordeaux, which is where Brunel was coaching before he took the France job, so he knows him well. He's obviously got faith in him. France have always struggled with their halfbacks, and what they need is to find a pair. They're playing Machineau at 9, Jalibert at 10 against Ireland. They need to give them a run of games. But they've got the players on the back line. They're always going to be strong up front. They've just got to get it together, and there are signs that maybe they will.
What about you, Stuart, in regard to Ireland? Do you see them as rightful favourites, and how do you think they'll go on Saturday? Tough trip, but like I said, maybe not as feared as it once was, a trip to Paris.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ireland are very much the single biggest threat to England in this tournament. I think they're a very solid team. They're incredibly well coached. They've got experience in all the right positions. They've got a mix of youth and flair with that experience. They're a serious test nation, Ireland. This team's very, very strong, and I think that you've got an Ireland that is already on a very strong foundation, moving forward, transitioning into the next World Cup, and you've got a France that's trying to find its identity, find itself, find its team, and I think that's just too much of a mismatch. Yes, there's an awful lot of talent in that French squad. On their day, they're a rival for anyone, but I think a lot of us remember the good old days when France could come out and put 40 points on anyone, and they could be rubbish in the first half and brilliant in the second and turn a game round. They're not that team anymore. They've become a much more forward dominant team, and they're just, I don't think that spark is there, and I think this Ireland team is very, very good. I think you need something more than this French team currently has. They may be able to mould this team into a team that is capable of that, but where they are right now, there's just not that familiarity. There's so much change that I just can't have them.
Joe, Ireland had a great set of autumn internationals. You've got a fantastic coach in Joe Schmidt. You've got Leinster going great guns in Europe and in the Pro 14. It's all set up for you, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I think the Irish are pretty much ready to lock and load here. The opening game in France, it is the shortest price Ireland have ever been going to Paris, but nothing to fear there. Look, I think the French are basically a new coach. It's desperation. They've got some police issues as well. They raided the HQ of French rugby in the last week. So on and off the pitch, it's a bit of turmoil. Jalibert, look, I'm sure Brunel knows plenty about him, having been in Bordeaux, but it's only 3 months since his top 14 debut. 19 years old. Joe Smith will have a plan for that. He'll definitely tactically be ready for the French and kind of pick out any weaknesses to exploit. So look, if the Irish get over the French game, as I said earlier, the schedule is kind of set up to build up nicely to a showdown in Twickenham, and I don't know who does the scheduling for the Six Nations, but how Ireland versus England isn't the final game on the final day, I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, it does seem strange. Wales-France, the last game, isn't it, on the final day? Yeah, it does seem a strange choice, that. Talking of the English,
just because it goes on for 100 minutes.
Yes. Talking of the English, Graham won the last 2 Six Nations titles under Eddie Jones. He's got a fantastic record. You alluded to injury problems for England, particularly number 8 with Nathan Hughes out on Billy Vunipola. And there's a tricky trip to Scotland to factor in as well. What's your view on England at the moment?
Well, I'd said earlier I'd taken them to win it, and I'd said, yes, I would like Ireland at 11-4, 3-1, whatever they were. I don't really like them at 6-4. I didn't like England much at 4-6. They've drifted out. I think evens now with Paddy Power, and an even better price with Paddy Power is 13-5 that they win, but no Grand Slam. Because whatever England have got, they're a consistent team, but there's always the feeling that there's a slip up round the corner. They've never quite dominated matches. They won it late against France in their opener, the try in the last sort of 10 minutes from Ben Teo. They were losing to Wales with 5 minutes to go. They were beating Italy by 2 points or something at Twickenham with an hour gone. And they've had this get out of jail card. They've turned it around late. It can't happen every time. And Eddie Jones has often complained that there's not enough leadership on the pitch. He needs players who can stand up and point the way. So I think they will slip up somewhere. It's hard to know where. It could be Scotland. It could be France in Paris. I don't think they've got enough to do a Grand Slam yet, but I think they are, because of the depth of their squad and because of their coach, they have enough, I would say, to get over the line, but it won't be a Grand Slam.
Yeah, Stuart, that's right in many regards. England did kind of flatline a little bit last season. It took them a long time to get past teams, and you kind of felt the defeat was on the way, and it duly came in Dublin. Do you think Eddie Jones has been able to work the oracle again and got them to kind of regroup and go again? Or do you think they're potentially vulnerable in some games, particularly in Murrayfield?
I think they are vulnerable. The thing I would say for this England team is they do generally seem to have an incredible knack of finding a way to win. I think that what Eddie Jones has done in avoiding playing New Zealand to this point is a bit of a masterstroke, because he has helped to create this aura around this England team that they just get games won. I think that it's a bubble that is going to burst, and quite spectacularly when it does. I don't think it's going to be this tournament. They're very adept at grinding out matches in Six Nations conditions. I can absolutely, given the strength of the teams in this tournament, see any one of Wales, France, Ireland or Scotland upsetting them. I can't see enough of them upsetting them to stop them winning the tournament, and if any team is going to win through, it's England. The way the fixtures fall for them, the trip to Murrayfield is a potentially very big game if Scotland beat Wales. If Scotland lose to Wales, I think England go in there very confident. Scotland come out, that becomes their big game, their big focus. But I think then you're looking at the Ireland game at Twickenham, and it's on their terms, it's on their turf. They've turned Twickenham into something of a fortress in recent years.
Joe, say England and Ireland get to the final round and it's winner takes all in Twickenham. How would you see that match going, and how do you compare England's strength to maybe Ireland at the moment?
Yeah, so look, at Paddy Power, we bet at 4-1 that game is actually going to be a Grand Slam decider on St. Patrick's Day. Look, if they both get to it unbeaten, you're looking at England no shorter than maybe 2-point favourites going into that. So you're close enough to a coin flip as far as we're concerned there. Look, I think England, as mentioned already, they like to grind things out. The Scotland game is going to be massive, and yeah, look, the most entertaining thing about England could be the Eddie Jones press conferences.
Okay. Well, let's go to an advert, and when we come back, we'll discuss some of the specials.
Paddy Power are gearing up for the Six Nations with this cracking offer. Place a What Odds Paddy bet and get your money back as a free bet if it loses. Max free bet £10. T's and C's apply. 18 plus. Be gambleware.org.
Right, there's always a plethora of opportunities in the Six Nations in the special market. Top try scorer is always a popular market. I think about 8 players tied for it last season, so you wouldn't have got rich with that, unfortunately. But Graham, we'll go to you first. Is there any value in the top try scorer market?
It is hard to find, and as you say, there was a big dead heat, and only 3 tries scored. So you haven't got to get them many. 2 players scored 3 in a game, and they were up there. CJ Stander and Craig Gilroy for Ireland. So I think the team you want to look at is Ireland. They do score a lot of tries. They've consistently done that. Keith Earls is a man in form at the moment for Ireland and Munster. He led the way last year. He could well be worth throwing a few quid up.
And they've also got Italy at home in the second leg, so that could be a try-fest. Jacob Stockdale's another interesting one.
Yeah, he's probably going to start on the other wing. And there's this young lad, Jordan Lama. We'll see what we see of him. He hasn't played for Ireland yet, I don't think, but he really caught the eye for Leinster.
Stuart, what about you? Top try scorer, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the 8-way tie or whatever it was last year is what puts me off actually dabbling in the market. The individual that I'm always drawn to in these markets is Stuart Hogg, simply because he is
joint top last year.
Yes, absolutely, and he is a standout in that Scottish backline. But the reason he is so interesting in these markets is because with the likes of sort of the players that Scotland are bringing through on the wings, and the improvement to the centre partnership. We've got a young guy debuting at 13, whose name is escaping me at the moment, plays for Newcastle. A brilliant offloader of the ball, brilliant line breaker. If he can transition that into test match rugby, if he's making breaks and offloading, it's going to be Stuart Hogg on his shoulder. He's going to have a speedster on his outside. Do you take him? Do you mark the speed? He's got a great dummy. He's got a great step. Like, I think the way that team is set up, it is set up for him to be a real try threat and be the main weapon and try scorer, more so than any other team. I don't think there's another team in this tournament that is set up for one individual to score tries any more so than this. I played with a kid at school who was out of this world good, and our entire policy was get the ball to him in try scoring opportunities, and I kind of get the feeling with this Scotland team that is their approach to Stuart Hogg, and to me that's what makes him the sort of standout in that market.
Joe, what about you? Would you go rowing with one of the market leaders for top try scorer? Have you got something at a huge price who you think might go well?
Yeah, so look, we bet at a quarter of the odds, and you get 4 places to kind of counter all those dead heats. I think the fact that you could likely run into a dead heat or a small number of tries could win it. I'd be looking towards maybe some of the Welsh players. They play a potentially disinterested French side late on the tournament, and then also have Italy. So you could be looking at somebody racking up 2 or 3 tries there. So the likes of George North in around the kind of 25-1 mark is interesting. But also Gareth Davies, he's around 50, 66s, Welsh scrum half, snipey probably runs it more than he passes it. No Rhys Webb to contend with this season. So he might be an interesting each way play.
I tend to agree with Joe on that. The Welsh backs, the Scarlets, have been scoring tries for fun this season. You've got guys like, just off the top of my head, Hadley Parks. You've got a brace against South Africa in the autumn, 150-1. Could you see something at a huge price potentially getting involved?
He could do. I mean, North is a big price. I don't think he's going to be... Is he on the bench on Saturday? He may not even be there.
He should be fit for Italy.
He should be fit later. This is the trouble. The players will be coming in, so others will be going out. We don't know how many games Hadley Parks will play. So I like the idea of Gareth Davies, though, because that is a way that scrum halves are quite interesting in this market, because Rhys Webb, you mentioned, who's injured now. Gareth Davies is another one who likes the sniper, and Conor Murray is a regular try scorer for Ireland. And Danny Kerr, I mean, he's probably going to come off the bench, but I think he scored 3 tries last year. I think he was in the mix. So.
And Graham, staying with you, any other specials that catch your eye?
The one I always like to look at is the yellow cards. I think it always gets pitched too high. And then every year new sort of law updates come in, and we're expecting, a brace for loads of yellow cards. I think there were 8 last year, but only in 6 games. So that's 9 games out of the 15 didn't have a single yellow card. I think referees try to keep the game flowing a bit more, and I'll probably look to go under.
Let's not go down VAR debate or go upstairs at the moment. Stuart, any other specials that catch your eye or are of interest to you?
Yeah, the young French fly half Mathieu Jalabert in the top point scorer market catches my eye, simply for the fact that, it was France's goal kicker that won this market last year. I know they've got a new coach, and that may throw a spanner in the works of this, but over the last 2 years, France's penalties awarded count in matches has been vastly higher than any other team in international rugby. They play a style of rugby that wins them an awful lot of penalties, and looking through the starting 15, Jalabert looks the most likely kicker. He kicks for his club side, so yeah, if he gets a run in the team, as Graham was alluding to, and he is on kicking duty, France do tend to draw more 3-point opportunities than any other team in the tournament. So from that angle, I think he could be an interesting play.
Joe, what about you? Paddy Power must be offering all kinds of different specials on this tournament. What catches your eye?
Just going back to, say, the top Irish try scorer market, Jordan Larmour, 25-1, definitely could get thrown in. I'd say heavily odds on to get thrown in against Italy. And if he has a big game there, could potentially get a run out in subsequent games. So I think Gilroy scored 3 tries against the Italians last year and ended up being joint top try scorer overall.
I think he came off the bench in that game as well, Gilroy. So.
Yeah. It can be open to that's why a substitute to come on and, you know.
Yeah, you shouldn't overlook bench players in the top try scorer.
No,
because they come on late when defences are opening up. So
exactly, come on after 60 minutes. Players are tiring. There's gaps all over the
Danny
pitch.
Chair argument.
Yeah.
Right, let's get ready for the Steve Palmer jingle.
This will not be beaten.
Graham, one bet in the Six Nations. Your best bet. What is it?
Well, I've already said England to win the title, but no Grand Slam. I believe that's 13-5.
Stuart, same question.
Scotland to finish 3rd.
That's very precise.
It is, yeah.
And Joe, your best bet of the tournament?
Yeah, look, I think the 4-1 about a Grand Slam decider on St. Patrick's Day in Twickenham is really appealing, and I hope that comes to fruition. First week, as I mentioned earlier, around the 7-4 mark, Wales first scoring play, a penalty against Scotland. Just the way the makeup of the two teams, that'd be interesting. And then if you're got the constitution to take it on, Italy plus 21 against the English, that'd be an interesting one to sit and watch. But first up, they might go well.
Well, let's bring on the weekend. Thanks very much to Graham. Thanks to Stuart. Thanks to Joe from Paddy Power. Make sure you never miss another show by subscribing on iTunes.
Paddy Power are gearing up for the Six Nations with this cracking offer. Place a What Odds Paddy bet and get your money back as a free bet if it loses. Max free bet £10. T's and C's apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.